We were brought in specifically to do the identity as Mode was developing some additional material at the very outset of the campaign. Mode is a motion design firm here in Chicago that has a long-standing relationship with David Axelrod and his company. We started with a team of 5 of us. We really narrowed the team down to myself, Amanda Gentry, and Andy Keene. And in the end, it was just that core team working on the refinement and finalization of the mark and then handing it off to the campaign. The way we approached the strategy, there was an initial charge to do something different. I mean, so from the start, that was the primary creative direction from the client. And we immediately read both of Senator Obama's books and zeroed in on a couple of passages that certainly talked about change and hope, but we were very interested also in this idea of there not being red states and blue states, but there being one country and erasing those kinds of boundaries. We wanted to do something new, but I felt there was a real danger in doing something too new. I think we all knew from the start that there was going to be some concerns about Senator Obama's experience, you know, that there were going to be, people were going to go after that. And I felt that red, white, and blue needed to stay. And that an element of the flag, a patriotic message, that it was important to have that there and to try to do something new, but also to have something traditional in the mix. We felt that the palette was pretty gray, red, white, and blue, of course, stars, stripes, but everything was primarily typographic. There were no real logos to speak of. And for Senator Obama, I think the idea of something different, obviously of change, that all worked very nicely with the idea of doing something very different with the identity for the campaign and the graphic language that was developed. My firm had never worked on a political identity, and I think that gave us an advantage because the design expression was so constrained and so bland for so many years in politics. I think that, you know, we had a fresh approach because we had not ever worked on a campaign before, and again because of I think because of the strength and the power of the candidate's message. The logo wouldn't have worked unless it stood for something real. And you know, no matter how good a logo it is, no matter how well executed it is, if it doesn't stand for something that means something to people, then it's not going to work. You know, lots of people from the start felt that this OB and 08, you know, was there an opportunity to do something there? And some of our exploration, you know, really zeroed in on that almost purely. This was one example of the 08 being a reflection of the OB, but we looked at a bunch of different treatments for that. We were interested in the intersection of red and blue, and we looked at that in a variety of ways. Still playing very much with the 08, but this point of intersection between the red and the blue we looked at in a number of different ways. We did see the O as potentially standing for something beyond just the first initial of the candidate's name. I think when it became a sort of primary symbol, like in a variation like this, there was an idea of unity that emerged, especially when we began to look at the red and the blue and how they intersected, and certainly unity was a primary theme of the campaign from the start. Before we even arrived at the final identity, we were aware of developing a number of options that had an element that stood separate from the typography, and that had the potential to stand separate from the typography as a symbol, as an independent symbol of the campaign. And I think because of my team's background in design and brand development, I think that is something that we brought to the table from the start. It was the way we approached identities, and I think a lot of the options that we presented had that component. We developed a lot of logos. You know, usually we only develop 2 to 4, maybe 5. Very difficult to develop logos, but there was a lot of excitement, and so there was 15, 16 different options. We zeroed in on 3 of them with modes feedback and with the campaign's feedback. This was one of them. Obviously, you know, picks up on the 08 very strongly. This concept we felt really depended on a campaign. This masking of different photos with the O shape became an opportunity to say different things in different moments, to support different types of messages, whether it was about education, whether, you know, voting initiatives. And that, again, you know, the O could contain all these different ideas, possibilities, and feelings. So, you know, when we presented them, we tried to show them across multiple applications so that the campaign could get a real sense of what it would feel like to have this as the, you know, fundamental component of the campaign identity. I believe this was the other finalists. So it came down to this one and the one that was chosen. And there was a lot of excitement about this. I think people felt this was really something new, something different. I think the applications of it were pretty interesting. Again, it could contain different messages. We felt that it was a kind of populist expression, a kind of everyone's excited about Obama, the people are talking. Especially liked the sort of the bus application and the car window. But yeah, there was a lot of excitement about this. We refined it. We showed some alternate versions. In the end, I think we felt like it was a little. I mean, it was a little too far out of the box, in our opinion. And it doesn't seem that far out of the box now. But again, we thought that having a little more tradition in the mark was the smart way to go. There was a lot of very positive response to a number of these. And for me personally, this was always the one. I think for the client and for other members of the team, they were, you know, they felt very good about some of the other options, and it was less clear. We always, from the start, were very jazzed about this as a possibility. That in fact, it could stand alone as a symbol of support for the candidate. And so this was one of the first applications we showed. The one thing that we changed about it, originally the stripes were kind of symmetrically expressed across the horizon there, and as we went into final refinements, we decided that giving it a little bit more of dimension, a little bit more motion, ways to enter into it a little bit more for the viewer was a better way to go. So this was the final version that we handed off to the campaign.